Welcome, everybody, to Discussing Depression with Casey Moran. I am Casey Moran. Another great episode coming at you today. Got a fellow comedian, I should say, not former, fellow comedian, and somebody I'm a fan of. His name is Chris DiStefano. Chris is on MTV's Girl Code and Guy Code. He's been on a show called Benders on IFC. He's got a new sitcom pilot that he's shooting soon. He's got a Netflix thing he's also working on. He's been doing stand-up for not that long, but he broke quick because of how hard he works. And he just has a really interesting story. People ask me, what's the criteria to be on your show, or, who do you want to interview? And there's really no answer for it, because I just want to interview anybody that's willing to talk about things in their life that used to be really hard to talk about. And I say that because, with me, I wasn't open about my depression for a while, and a lot of people aren't. Chris is a guy that's very open about his depression and anxiety, mainly anxiety. He goes on Opie and Anthony, or used to go on Opie and Anthony, and he goes on Opie Radio now. He used to do Opie and Jim. He was always open about his whole life, about everything. But he had videos talking about his anxiety on Instagram, and I was like, man, he's an ideal get. So I don't know Chris. I know of him, and I know him through radio. So what I did was I just reached out to him on Instagram, on social media, and he responded super quickly. Thanks for being a fan. This business is tough, but I appreciate it. And then I asked him later on, I said, hey, would you ever want to do this podcast? Thinking he'd be like, no, but thank you. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So we've been kind of bouncing back and forth what time, and he wanted to do today at this time. And, I had to turn down helping the homeless with this mission thing. And it was hard to do because something I wanted to do for a while, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do that next week. And because Chris and I have just gone back and forth, and either one of those is going to help people. I'm going to do that next week. I got to help at the Children's Hospital with Steve Simone, who I'll have on this podcast, and Johnny LaCosta, who I'll also have on, and Vinny Fastline, who opens for Tane Cook. And it was the best. We went to Children's Hospital in LA and did a blood drive and donated blood and hung out with the kids and families, and had some donuts that Steve and Karen brought. Oh, they're the best. Not the donut. Well, the donuts are the best, but Steve and Karen. And I've been doing a lot of stand-up stuff. I went last night with my friend Mitch Verzi, who's one of the Verzi triplets. You might have heard him on the Infamous Chronicles, or they just did the roast battle against the Wave a couple weeks ago, and they won, and we're just so happy for those guys. But me and Mitch went to see David Spade, Norm Macdonald, Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, Nick Swardson, Judd Apatow at the Microsoft Theater, and it was so much fun. We had a fun Uber ride there and back. We had a good time. And I think sometimes I was down about life, and comedy really helped me. Just watching it, not performing, not producing, just watching it. I'm doing a lot of shows coming up, producing a ton of things to try to help my friends out. And it's stressful. It's very stressful to talk to venues and do all these things. But I know that laughter heals, and I know these people are going to break, and I know that they're good people, and they make me laugh. So once the shows finally happen, I can just sit there and laugh and not have to worry about anything else. But in the meantime, it's a lot of stress. So watching a show where I didn't have anything to do with it other than just be an audience member was a lot of fun and kind of rewarding in a way. Liberating, I should say. But yeah, I know this is going to be a little long of an intro, so I do apologize. But Chris is going to call anytime here, and so we're just going to kind of lay this out. I'm going to talk about a couple things, recent episodes. I had Jonathan Lipnicki on, and the feedback, it just got released today, and the feedback already has been just incredible. And Jonathan is a guy who, you know from Jerry Maguire, like Mike, Stuart Little, Little Vampires, and he's just the nicest kid. He's not a kid, he's an adult, but he was so open about his anxiety, and he didn't hold anything back, but he was so cool about everything. I just wish more people were like that. You don't have to be famous, just be honest with who you are. The fakeness in the world is hard for me to handle when I'm doing this podcast, because there's so many real people that come on and real stories, and that's why Chris is going to be such a good guest. And I have Danielle Savory's going to come on soon, talk to her about some stuff, and we got a lot of people lined up which is just people hit me up all the time, say I would love to do your podcast. Not just comics, but like people that I grew up with that are working in the field now or whatever. So I have like a ton more to do. I've already have like 6 or 7 in the can, meaning I already recorded them, so they'll be out. Interviewed my friend Mike Bobbitt. He was a comedian. He was amazing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them too that I want to do 2-parters with because I didn't even get a chance to break, get a chance to really dive into what I wanted to talk about, which is hard because you would think that mental illness is like a thing where you're like, all right, let's talk about my anxiety and then that's it. But it just dives into other things and it's just reality. Mental illness is real. It's a real thing. And I'm scared that some people don't think it's real. And that's another episode I want to have. I'm going to interview this guy. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet because I don't know for sure if he'll do it. But he went on another podcast and he talked about how he thinks depression is bullshit and he doesn't think mental illness is a real thing. And that's fine. It's your opinion. But I want to dive into this person's brain and not argue with him and not berate him, but just kind of get a feel for what his perspective is. That being said, we're going to take this call from Chris DiStefano. Here we go. Chris.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm sorry it took so long.
No. Don't even apologize. I was just telling the listeners, like, sometimes you just reach out to people you're fans of and you don't expect them to even respond, but you have all these like followers and all these fans, but you responded so quickly and I was like, yeah, I'm going to ask him to do the podcast. And just because he's been so open about anxiety, but he would probably say no, but it's just so cool that he was responding. And you were like, yeah, I would love to. I'm just busy and we'll figure it out. And that just means a lot to me. So thank you.
Of course, man. Yeah. Anxiety is one of those things that, I've like always been like a huge part of my life, and like what drove me to do comedy as an outlet for it. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I believe that it's like I've had a couple different people on this podcast. I actually had Jonathan Lipnicki, who is the kid on Jerry Maguire, on
right.
this today it just released, and everybody has a different definition of what anxiety is because it's different for everyone. Would you be able to describe what you think anxiety is for you to kind of give the listeners a feel of what you go through?
My anxiety, well, actually how all my anxiety started was on 9/11. I'm from New York, and my mother survived, but she worked in the World Trade Center. So for 15 hours, we didn't know if she was dead or alive. So it opened up, and we would call her, and her phone was off, and we didn't know, really where she was. So that opened up this whole can of worms for me. And, I started to feel really bad anxiety anytime a loved one or a girlfriend or anybody would walk out the door. I would start to have this panic like it was the last time I was ever going to see them, because that's what my brain thought happened on 9/11 with my mom. So even though everything worked out okay, the panic button is still pressed, all the time with that. So, with that leads to depression, and then it leads to a feeling of I don't even ever want to have a relationship with anyone because I'm scared that they'll die.
Right.
So all that stuff though, instead of turning to drugs and alcohol, which, from all the therapists I've been to, said that's what most people do. I just was let me try to, think of another outlet. So I was, even though in the midst of all that, even though on 9/11, I was so, worried about my mom and so upset, my instinct was to try to make other people who were upset in my high school laugh. And that's what I did. I started trying to tell jokes, to do things to get people's mind off it, because I always felt like that was, my gift, or that's just what I liked to do. So
right.
That's what started for me, and kind of what it goes on. I mean, I don't really have a lot of my fears have a lot of career anxiety, oh, what about this joke? What about that? What if I don't get this part? What if I don't get that part? and I have that to a degree, but I mean, now especially, I'm going to have an 18-month-old, daughter. So it's like, for me, it's like, I hope my career keeps progressing. I'm really working very hard to try to make sure that it does. But at the end of the day, man, if I got a happy, healthy daughter and I'm healthy and I can watch her grow, like, that's really all that matters.
Right. Well, you talked about your mom, working in the World Trade Center. And I remember you said, and you've been open about it, that's the only reason I bring it up, but you said you were a big basketball star and you played at a school in like Long Island, I believe. And you thought your mom was in the World Trade Center and somebody said something on your team and you either hit them or threw a chair at them or something like that. And you got like kicked off the team, but your dad, who's just this character that I love hearing you talk about him, he like goes in and convinces the principal that you're off the team, but you got to graduate because he knew how important school was. And what you did after that was you went to a Division III school and dominated because you were probably getting looked at by Division I's. And I was a former sportscaster, so like this stuff was so just intriguing to me. And then you played a little bit overseas. You came back and you started doing physical therapy. So, you're a guy that's not your typical comedian because you have your doctorate in something that is also helping people. And then you got into comedy relatively late for some people, but you broke so hard and quick because you worked so hard at it, like you worked it in sports and in school and physical therapy and talking about things like your dad and all that. And one thing that I really wanted to ask you, because it's something that I can't do right now, is Sarah Silverman said years ago in an interview, she wants a kid, but she won't have one because she's scared that her kid could get depression because she has it. Are you at all nervous that your daughter or any other kid that you might have might inherit your mental illness?
Not really, only because I feel like I've been able to cope with my mental illness and I've been able to, in some people's eyes, be successful with it. So I believe that and my mother was, has it and it's fine and successful and, on her own. So I feel like it hasn't, like kind of slowed me down that much. I mean, I deal with it, but, I feel like, with a child especially, I mean, you can't protect them from everything. Like, maybe she won't get mental illness, but maybe she'll have something else that she's going to have to struggle with. I mean, in life, like, we all have these struggles, and we just have to find ways to overcome them. So, I mean, look, to each his own. I mean, if you don't want to have kids and you have a reason that you believe hard in, then that's fine. I mean, that's whatever. But, me, it's like, I wouldn't think about it that way because we're all different people, and you know how this is. I mean, it's all different brain chemistry, and it's all different, you don't know. Like, maybe I have anxiety because, my mother, and my father, the way that, their DNA linked up, like, gave me some kind of biochemical imbalance I had to deal with. But maybe that's not how my DNA links up with my daughter's mother, and she won't have it. Like, I don't know, but maybe she'll have something else. So
right.
I just feel like you got to just, with children especially, like, you can't protect them from everything, even though I'll always try. And, like, I just, the way I've been really, really dealing with and handling my anxiety has been just saying it's day, taking every day as a brand new day and just worrying about the problems of that day. I really, very rarely now think so much into the future or too far into the past. Staying in the present has helped me so much that it's like, I can't believe, like, I ever was even on, like, Haxel or Lexapro or anything like that, because just staying in the present, which is hard to do. I mean, I try to meditate, or I try to, talk with my father or with my friends when I'm really under bad panic attacks, and they constantly remind me, hey man, just stay in the present. You can't predict what's going to happen when your daughter's 18. You don't know.
Right.
So just in the present. In the present right now, she's fine. She doesn't have a mental illness, and everything's healthy. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So staying in the present has really, really, really helped me so much.
Wow. No, that's great advice. It's like, it's weird because it is advice that anybody can give or get, but you can't really take in that advice until you decide that that's what you want to change and that you're going to do it. It's like talk is cheap.